Hey everybody, this is Mark with the Cover Cats. Of course, we've taken everything apart on this 1994 XJS Jaguar, and not all headliners are built the same. Some of the things that you're going to be addressed with is the bow listings are actually pockets, and as you can see here, this is not a pocket, so it will have to get folded and sewn and created into a pocket. But even this pocket right here is too much. So basically what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to unstitch this and determine the amount of fold over that we need to have to create this pocket, so that this behaves the same way as the old headliner was in the XJS. So they sent this to us, which is a replacement. Did a pretty good job. We've talked to you about these listings right here that the black straps have to go into. They have to be threaded. Well, this new one does have those. There they are. Okay, so that can be used. This also had snap fasteners and a strap to go along the primary arm of the frame, and you can see the direction that this goes. We're going to have to unsew this right here, turn it around so that it does the same thing as this one is doing. Alright, so these are some of the kind of things that you're going to be faced with. If you use the Cover Cats for the XJS 1994 model, we will build ours exactly the way it's supposed to be built. Unfortunately, we ordered off for this one. We didn't know what we were up against. We know now, so we'll continue on, and we will use this replacement here, but only after the modifications are made. You can also see that this right here is Velcro. Well, on the inside of the frame, this wraps around a stanchion in the back and Velcros to the back side of it. Now, you wouldn't know unless you had been watching the video earlier when I peeled this off. So that being said, I'm going to have to sew this strip of Velcro in. Won't have to do this. I do have to turn this over and turn it around so that this well, I stand corrected. They actually did this correct. They sewed it in correctly. Alright, so I stand corrected on that. What I'm not happy with is, of course, these pockets, which were not sewn. So we're going to have to trim a little bit off of here, fold that over, create a pocket for this secondary bow, and we're going to have to create a pocket for that tertiary bow, and we're going to have to figure out where to cut it for the last and final one. So I think what I'm going to do is just go ahead and install it, and then cut away what is left after I've installed all my screws and hardware for this portion right here. Alright, thanks for tuning in. Alright, shameless plug for the business. Now we're working on this headliner, and I've used a China marker to establish where the new Velcro is going to be. I don't like raw edges, so we're going to be folding this over and then installing a seam right along here. And after you get that, then you're going to get your Velcro, and after it's folded over, you're going to fold your Velcro, fold your material, and sew your Velcro down on top of it, just like it was done on this right here. It's not a raw edge, okay? Because I don't know if this is going to be seen. I'm pretty sure it's not going to be seen, but even if it is, it'll look nice and fancy. Alright. Alright, just going back and double checking my work. This is the original piece right here, and this is the new restored piece and new headliner. Got this Velcro sewn down. This end right here, for some strange reason, does not get sewn. As a matter of fact, it gets clipped off even. I'm gonna leave it. Or better yet, since this is the end of the original material and it didn't make a hill of beans, I think I'll just go ahead and hem that over and sew it down. Alright, let's do that real quick. Now, I want to stay in line with the existing. So I'm going to put one finger right there. Hold it down with my pinky. I don't want to get into the Velcro line. So I'm just going to go ahead and fold that over. Get it started. Let me show you where I'm at. Staying in line. And this extra will be trimmed off. So we'll just go ahead and hem that up, just like it was done over here. I think I can hold that with that finger right there. Give you a bird's eye first person view of the process, so you can see what's going on. Grabbing the back side of it to help it along. Almost there. Little back stitch. That's done. Get my scissors. Cut my thread, pull it over, check the work, and the only thing left is to trim the rest of it. And doesn't really take a whole lot of finesse to do it. Just trim it off, just like that. And then from the other side, you have a nice seam all the way down to the end. Just stay in line with what was already there. Alright, I will say this for whoever's producing these. You know, we had actually enough to fold over and hem on the other side. This side we don't have that luxury, which is okay, because with a little fine delicate work you can actually work that in to where it's not a selvage edge, and that it is and I believe me, I've gone through and I have aligned and realigned again. Maybe I'm not compensating for the stretch over the years, but there again, I don't really expect this to be a tight fit. This is a wide trough for the Velcro, so there's a lot of room for a lot of margin for error. So I'm going to go ahead and draw my lines real quick. As soon as I get my lines drawn, we will proceed. New lines are made, and I did notice that this was not necessarily in line with that plane up here. I don't know if that was an error on their part or not, but it didn't seem right doing it any other way. So I will be folding on that white line after all, and then we'll start the Velcro. We do have enough to fold over for a selvage burial there. I don't want that to show a selvage edge, so I'm going to be sewing right on the very edge of that when I come around. So I'm starting up here, coming around, start the Velcro. After I fold this over, we're going to use a portion of this to help start that direction, then come over here, pop it in, snap the Velcro on, and then move on. So this one's going to be folding over just like you see it right there. And to give you an orientation or an overall view, we're looking at the side of the headliner that points up towards the sky. Eventually we're going to have to sew in our pockets for the bows. So we're almost there. Just stay with us, we'll get there soon enough. Alright, boys and girls, just so you know, and in case you were wondering, don't go thinking that just because you've been doing this for several years that you know everything. I've encountered this before, but it was in an Alfa Romeo. Well, since they're both made overseas, it does make sense. They understand the principles of a double crown bow. Can't see it just looking at it. No one would really know unless you put it on the side. Okay, so you got the first and primary. When you set it over here on its side, I want you to see that that is at an angle. Let me put it into perspective here. If you look off in the distance to the end of that rod, you will see that it is from lower left to upper right. You can see that that is actually a bevel. Okay, that defines something. That means it's only going to go back in one way. You see this piece of tape right here? This piece of tape is going to go in this end over here in the new one. Alright, the piece of tape is there to protect the inside from getting all scratched up and pulling extra fabric out of there or pulling foam out of there. And then after I charge this thing up, I'm going to show you a couple other things about how I established this pocket. Okay, now it's going to be really tight when I put it in there, but I've been doing this for a while. You might want to make yours a little bit looser. One of the ways that we do that is to, while it's in this position, go ahead and throw everything up underneath it. Then we go and we use this right here to establish 1/2 inch. I like 3/4, so I added another 1/4 inch to it. And then I sewed just to the left of the existing seam right here. You can see the first seam right here, and then I sewed just to the, well, just to the right of it. Please forgive me, my orientation is a little it's been a long day. Alright, so again, the primary seam is just to the left. The secondary seam, which I just sewed just now, and I did just folded it under and then held it back down, measured and added in another 1/4 inch for a 3/4 inch pocket. Alright. Alright everybody, this is the segment of the video where we tell you basically that you can order one of these sound deadeners from us. I am in process of making the new one over there. There are all the pieces laid out over there. I'm not going to show you how I'm doing it because I want you to buy some sound deadeners from us. The entire process is about $250. We will not be using horsehair, but flat knit, which is right over there. Flat knit material. And you can see that right here where the strap goes through and it comes out the other side over here. Same thing for this one over here. A strap goes through here. I'll take you right over here and show you how we're making the new pockets. The strap will come in through this hole over here and exit out over this hole right here. Okay, so that's about as much as I'm going to show you on this right here. That is before. And this is the after, but not really quite yet because I still have another piece to attach to this. So you'll see that in just a few minutes. But in the meantime, I had to bring this back outside. What we're doing is trying to locate each one of our little hooks here so that we know where to mark it. And so I'm not really gonna mark the front. I'm gonna try and see if I can't grab something here to make my mark with, and you can see my two fingers here are actually grabbing the material while I move it forward and then set my mark. Let me go around to the other side. It's been raining out here, so I've got my canopy up so I don't get wet, or so the car doesn't get wet on the inside. Did we get a mark here? Yes, we did. Alright, 2 fingers out again. Just gonna make my marks with my China marker. Just keep hitting it till you see a mark. And there's a mark on that and that right there. Then what I did is I doubled over some material so that I have a channel to put this cable through. That's the cable that's got to go through that channel. We'll use a bodkin. I'll show you how to do that. But in the meantime, what is seen on the inside is a finished edge. Alright, just so you can see that. And what I'm going to do when I get this back inside, I'm going to use half of my hole punch to make a little crescent moon on each one of my marks, so that this can come through and do its job. It's just got to be enough to where the cable will be allowed to go through, because it's this right here is going to be going into it, not this right here. Alright, the reason we're using the cable is because this really doesn't have a whole lot of integrity. So we want this sound deadener to be installed and in place, and beyond that, the headliner, which I was sewing up last night, is going to be going on underneath this. You won't see the sound deadener right here. What you will see is the headliner, and that will be on this bottom side of this sound deadener. And I went ahead and took the liberty of sewing in a Cover Cats logo to show who manufactured the sound deadener. Like I said before, nobody else makes these, but I reverse engineered the one I had, and I'll probably keep it on hand until I've got some final measurements and stuff like that. So anyway, I've made my marks, cut it, and I'm going to put a hole right here for the pop rivet, which is going to go right there, and then the rest of it's going to be stapled. Alright guys, thanks for watching. Starting back with the reassembly process, dealing with the headliner, interior headliner. I mentioned before a bodkin. This is what a bodkin is. It's just a little hook shape out of a coat hanger. Okay, it's really not that long. It's about maybe 11 inches long, including the handle. So basically what you're going to do is you're going to take this and you see this tab has already been pulled through, but you're going to insert from this end front to back all the way down, and then pick it up and then bring it back through. And that's what we did here. Then you're going to take the top part of this loop, making sure that it goes through this part back here in the back and that it slides, because that's the action you're looking for. So these two then get joined together, one over, one under, and then it tucks back up underneath here. One set screw holds it, and that's it. So we're going to get that in. It's already been done on the other side. This back listing actually had a back bow. I am not going to use the back bow because we're going to take the headliner material and we're going to wrap it and staple it. Alright, now don't forget about your 2 cuts back here in the back either. So before I wrap and staple, I'm going to have to take the bone back out. Alright, once that bone's back out, then this will fall back down to the well. Now before I did anything else, I noticed that the elastic was a little weak, so I tightened it up. So now the action that we're looking for is that right there. Okay, but right now the window's not in there. If the window was in there, it would look like this. But just as soon as relief comes from the front cresting over, that will snap up right there and help to gather this bow up to the 3rd bow. Okay, that's its job, that's its mission in life. I couldn't find any good elastic, good strong elastic, so there are 2 pieces of elastic here. Don't worry about stretching everything. So I should probably provide some technical information on this for those of you that are just a little, you know, squeamish about doing this. What I did is I stretched out the elastic and then I placed it right there at that line, okay? And I drew the line and then I let everything relax. I didn't sew it while it was tight, okay? So the distance between this line and this right here is the original distance. Just when you stretch your elastic out, and it looks like this on the table, when you stretch your elastic out, it needs to meet that at its most extended point. All right, let me get some detail on this for you just so you'll see. Now, this is looped over. It's not a cut. It's not two pieces. It actually originates right here, goes forward, bent back, then sewn here first. Then I laid it out on the table, gathered up the part that is not the elastic, gathered that up, placed my elastic right here, and then sewed it down, okay? And I went across it a couple of times, at least a couple of times, with 1/38 thread, okay? So that was just a little bit of a small detailed tutorial on how to restore the thread, or excuse me, the elastic. This right here is the part that stays up towards the sky. All right, you don't want this looping down and catching your headliner right here and protruding, because it will do that. Once there's enough slack in there, it'll actually protrude. We want our headliner to fold inward. We don't want it to fold outward. All right, enough on that. Alright everybody, I don't feel good about leaving you in the lurch, especially when it comes to a headliner. You know we had to sew some pockets into this. Alright, so what I did is I listed the third bow first, and I pointed the seam back towards the back using this kind of motion right here, pulling everything back towards the back, okay? Because there's an unusual amount of distance on this pre-manufactured headliner, and I want to take up the distance and compensate for the slack. All right, so what I did was, first I used a little hook tool, looks like this right here. I inserted it up into this hole right here, okay, and then I held it with my hands, then put a pop rivet in there after I had drilled the hole out. You'll understand why in a minute, because you cannot get a regular screwdriver in there unless you got a stubby screwdriver. Then you can do it. All right, and please also note, this is not the way this particular headliner come out. This is my way of compensating for the slack that's in this headliner. All right, and I did notice it while it was inside, but I decided to go ahead and do a small segment on this. All right, so here is your pop rivet that you're going to be inserting to the back side, okay, of the bow listing. So I'm going to set my tripod up and you're going to be able to see what's going on. All right, as I said, I'm not going to leave you in the lurch. Here we go. All right, here we go. It's not going to be easy to get to that middle one. Best thing to do is to feel around with the fingernail. I have a mark here. Let's see if that mark coincides with everything else. Mark on the top, mark on the bottom. That's her. Alright, this is shaped like an L, this hook tool is. So I was right about the mark. Let's go ahead and get that bad boy in there. We're just feeling around with the hook tool. Let's do it this way. The only reason I know that it's in this vicinity somewhere is because I got the 2 outside screws in already. We're basically just trying to feel our way around here. Alright, that's in. Go ahead and get our pop rivet in. Well, nobody said this shit'd be easy. So I'm gonna stop the camera so I can have more footage later. Alright everybody, I'm not saying this is the easiest stage, but it will be the most time consuming. Alright, you guys probably already recognize this flange right here. This flange is decorative. It doesn't do anything or serve any purpose. It has a break right here. I've already removed it once, but I put it back on so you can actually see how it comes off. It just peels right out. Okay? Watch out for your defroster tabs. It just pops right out. Okay, well I say it pops right out. Well, there you go. Alright. Just put this off to the side. The other part, which is on the reverse side that's exposed to the weather, looks like this. This is the part that gets tucked down into the crevice and why it seems like it doesn't want to come out. Alright. Then you're going to take a knife and try to angle your knife upward a little bit if you want to save the gasket that's in here. But all it is this stuff dried. Okay? It's insanely tough, it's insanely strong, and it creates a good bond. This is a urethane, and it is made for glass. It is designed to keep the glass in the frame. Now, I've probably been around this already once or twice, but definitely try to angle your blade upward so that when you go through, and it's going to take several passes to cut through that adhesive. You can see in some parts, let me take the blade out, that I'm already through all the adhesive. Okay? But you're going to have to finesse this out, and then once you've got it, then you're going to have to flip it over. And I've got some knives, butter knives. I've got about 6 of them. And I've taped each one so that when it does hit the glass, and it will hit the glass, it'll be soft. Okay? So do that with all your knives and make sure that they have a nice soft tip on the other side, because if you drop it, it's strong enough to break the glass. Been there, done that. Alright, just a safety tip for you, and always wear safety glasses. Got mine on, fool. Alright everybody, if you're poor like me, you're probably not going to be able to afford a lot of tools. I'm not saying I'm poor, it's just Pensacola is a long way away. So, I have improvised. This is a spring puller. Has a T-handle. I have taken the liberty of cutting a little notch right here at the end, on the inside. You'll see why in a second. I'm going to use that notch to grab the back side of this razor blade. We don't want it to slip out. So I'm going to show you the kind of action that I've been using to get this thing freed up. Just under the lip of the metal frame, and then of course line that groove up, and then put your thumb right here on the outside. I don't know if you can see it on the camera. Let me try that. Nope, that put it out of the frame. Alright, give me just a second to adjust. I want you to get a really good look at the kind of action that we're doing here. Alright, so a thumb here on the outside of the frame, And what you're going to be doing is rocking back and forth, and you're going to be using a ratcheting action, okay? As it goes through, on down the line, you're going to have to get brutal with it, but this is the way to do it. I'm already out of the frame, but all the way down the line until it can't go anymore. All the way down. If it snags on anything, already off frame again. When I make that transition also, I'm going to show you something else too. This is a strip right here that protects the lines for the heater, for the glass heater. So we're just going to basically reverse the process, starting up here, grabbing it, and we're going to use a little ratchet action right here to get it started. The biggest thing is not to cut yourself and to lock the blade. And you'll have to use several passes. Well, I say you can lock the blade. This thing might be tired. Several passes. Because this adhesive is as deep as this is wide right here. But that's the action. That's how you get it. I'm already 3/4 of the way around, and that's how it's done. Welcome back. Now that you got your glass out, I'm going to redirect your attention to this right here. If you can actually see it. Now let's talk about the bottom part, which is the part that's going to be going on the glass. The distance from here to here, top of my thumbnail to the bottom, from there to there. That distance right there is about the space that you're going to need for the glass to be off of this frame. Alright, so to ensure that, I'm going to encourage you to go down to, I think I got this from Home Depot. This is the product right here. Alright, they have just about and or enough room to space this window off of the frame so that you can do what you need to do. My recommendation on your placement, and there are ×4 is 16 of these, okay? So you're going to place them evenly and equally all the way around the frame, okay, before you put your silicone in and drop your window in. Alright? Alright, headline has been glued. Before you cut anything, make sure that when you close the top, it has at least a little bit of tightness there, okay? Then you can cut away, and I'll show you what to cut away in just a second. Alright, after all your mess is cleaned up, you got all the old stuff off of here, the stuff that would have peeled off anyway. Make sure all your hooks, this one too, all your hooks are in place and folded down. Okay? Next thing is to go back here and make sure everything is in order. Vacuum everything out, and my advice to you is to leave some kind of a swirl pattern. You see it going left to right there in a diagonal fashion, and I match the same going back and forth this way and then back and forth that way.
All right, so cause I don't know why customers just love the shit out of that when you do it. So anyway, that's the name of that tune. Now beyond that, what we're going to do is basically I'm going to have to put a brace up in here so that the window is kind of falling right about there. All right, it's going to sag anyway, we all know this. All right, make sure that your track is cleaned out right here. I'm going to show you what to do next on that, but now we're ready for the top. Okay, so after we've stapled the top in, then we're going to go ahead and get our little I guess they're called rubber feet, and we're going to put them, about 14 of these little bad boys, all the way around here, evenly spaced. Okay, then we'll put our caulk in there, or our windshield caulk, putty, goop, whatever you want to call it this week, and then we'll place the window. But we're going to cycle the top back so that the window is laying level. Right now it's not laying level, and I don't want the glass to travel. But right after we set that glass in there, we're going to have to put the bead in there to ensure proper spacing all the way around. All right, there wasn't any tying necessary for the string, but a loop does not go to a loop, so you're trying to join two like this. Take the string end and put it through the eyelet end right here, and come back out where you got a little bit of a loop, and then take the loose end, that's this end right here, and put it through the string loop and pull it tight, and that'll give you this right here. All right, so now I'm going to go ahead and pull it through. This is the other end over here that you cannot see probably, so I'm just going to go ahead and pull it through and make sure it picks up on the other end, and you can probably see it right there. Just make sure it comes back and sticks out on the other end. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a little clamp on it, all right, to keep it from pulling back through. Don't need that happening. Also it would be advisable, until you connect this to the stanchion up underneath here, to go ahead and leave your string attached. Now close that back over. Then we're going to take a series of clamps, and we're going to go ahead and put a clamp here all across the front, and then we're going to start cinching this down right here. All right, so you do want to make sure that your guide cable bolt goes through that red stanchion down there that we talked about earlier, and we'll get this process started. All right, guide cable bolts are in. Guide cable is sticking out. There's nothing done back here yet. I'm going to show you why. But right now, we need reference. We need to know how far in and how far up the old hole is. So we're going to go back and check reference on that, measure up and in on both sides, and reverse that process for the driver's side. We'll be right back. Alright, you don't have a tape measure, no problem. Go back to your other cover, cut it out. Be careful of the steel carcass that's in the bottom portion of the old cover. You won't be able to cut through that. Just work your razor knife around it, and then bring it back outside to your top. Line everything up. Take your poker, and make sure that you're all the way through. Get the original piece that was on there, set it in. It's only going to go one way and look right, folks, so I'm just going to caution you to pay attention to what you're doing. You see that little cutout, that little notch out right there, that little dome piece right there? That's what the bottom part of that carcass is going to meet. Alright, so we're just going to go ahead and drill this in. Line it up with the little, line it up with this right here. We're going to go ahead and get that thing started. Again, line that back up. Take it all the way down. Again, you may have to line this up because the torque of this screw gun is trying to make it behave differently. Okay, Now, at this point, you can go ahead and take a snap fastener head, go ahead and join them together and paint it black, or just leave it just like that. All right. So now that is started on this side. Do the same thing on the driver's side, and then we'll be back. All right, the reason I said to go ahead and set those on the end down there first, those things right there, is because we're going to do some pulling now. All right. So after the pulling is done, we're going to basically set the nuts to the extreme to where they're just about ready to come off the end of the bolt head for the tensioner strap. Now, once that's done, you're going to have to manipulate this thing as best you can. All right. I like to cheat, so let me show you what I've done. I went ahead and folded this area right in here. Let's see if I can show you what I'm talking about. I pre-folded it and kind of ducked it off in there and used a clamp. All right, that ensures it won't pop out of the channel. All right, but I did it all the way around. Okay, but I started from the ends and worked to my center, and I am now going to install my last clamp. So I'm just basically pushing up against the body of the car into that crevice because I don't want this thing popping out. All right. All right, clamps are in place. Now we start tightening. But as we tighten, we're going to be going around and double checking a few things. One of the things that we're going to be checking is to make sure that the bottom edge of these little pulls right here that you pre-strung on this, hopefully before you installed the wire, the guide cable. If you didn't, stop what you're doing, go ahead and put those on. Put the smaller portion towards the bottom and the wider portion towards the top. Okay, placement on these are not so as quintessential as everything else. You can move them after you've gotten everything tucked off into this channel. All right, so pay attention to what position they were in before, and you'll know where they end up after. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and continue. We're going to start tightening. All right, everybody, just a brief word on cables. The cable that was on this was starting to fray. I guess it's probably because of old age. So we ordered off for a new one, and this is the replacement, all nice and pristine and clean. They warrant against pull out. They do not warrant against shear, which kind of concerns me because there's really nothing to grab onto while you're tightening it. The only alternative is to use a pair of vice grips and try and catch one of these ground edges and stuff like that, and hope for the best. All right. Okay, I have an update for you. For the last couple of days, we have been fighting with the back tension cable that goes around. You can see a little bit of it sticking out up underneath my pop rivet gun handle and next to that bodkin, which we'll talk about in just a second. Now, when I attempted to install this the first time, well, let's go back. Let's talk about the first cable. While you're tightening it with your handy dandy 10mm, while you're tightening it, you have to have an isolation point. The best way to do it is to get you a small pair of vice grips, a very small pair of vice grips, and go ahead and hold that thing steady while you're tightening it, because the twist factor after it's tightened up will be so many twists in it that it will be enough to make it pop. Okay, so you don't want that to happen, because that's what was happening to the old one. And a little bit of literature, when they sent that new replacement cable, they actually gave me a little bit of a heads up. In other words, it is guaranteed not to pop out, okay, and we'll get back to that in a second, but it is not warranted for twist out. So do not, it said use something to isolate the swage while you're tightening it. All right, now I had gotten to that point to where I had everything installed all the way around here, and you could see the cable real good at that point because it was still loose. So I'm attempting to grab the cable, and I'm attempting to basically grab this piece of the canvas and this piece of the canvas and guide that cable down into that little groove right there. Well, just these 8 fingers right here was enough to pull that cable out of the swage. Alright, so now if you have a friend with a 20-ton jack, I would suggest you go and see him, but not before you remove one strand off of this cable and cut it loose and try and attempt to put that back into the swage, and then go down there and put 20 tons on it, and it will crimp it down enough, because you can see I have this thing back installed, and the only thing I have to do now is to finesse the rest of this cable to where it is hidden and not seen, because you can still see it right next to my bodkin. Now, about that bodkin, I created that a while back because sometimes I need to reach through things and get the loose end and bring it back to it. So now I'm attempting to focus my camera on a point of interest, and we're going to get to that in just a second. So what I did, alright, you know, I made a sound dampener or a sound barrier for this car because it needed it. Alright, and in that we incorporated a little pocket. The pocket has a hole on each side. Alright, so that's where this bodkin comes in handy. So I inserted the bodkin through one hole and came out the other, and received this portion of the convertible top's little pull strap. Alright, and then I put a hole in the end of the strap and then threaded it into this, and you can see with my bodkin, I'm gonna give you a little bit of a close-up here. Here we go. Alright, you can see that this is in line right here. This point right here is in line with the rest of it. We don't want it to be out of line with it, because this right here will catch on fabric and rip it. Alright, so make your own bodkin, or call me and I'll send you one for $2. Alright, anyway, no, I'm just kidding about the $2. I won't even send you one. So don't even call me and ask me for one. Make your own. Alright, now, after all that's done, I want to talk to you about the way canvas behaves over a number of years. Just this one little collar around this 1/8 inch pop rivet is not going to be enough. So we have an additional collar. We're going to install that on there. Put it onto the strap. Lock it in that position. Why? Because it's not going to be able to turn. When that top goes down, it's going to pull all this tight. Alright, so make sure that you put it on the end. It's not elastic, this is canvas, it does not stretch. So that's how you're going to do that part. Thanks for watching. Alright, all the other stuff I'm going to assume you know everything about. Of course, this all went in. I backed out the hooks 10 full turns. There is a gap between here and here. You can see my finger right there. You can see that gap. Just going to show it to you. Alright, I don't expect this top to fully close. Alright, so even the pegs that are up inside are not fully in their sockets. Where are they? There's the peg right there. It's not fully in its socket. There she is. That peg right there. Alright, so alright, she is drum tight. I expected that. Now draw this out before you cut it. I used my index finger to feel for the frame, and 3 fingers over, and drew out with my China marker where this needs to be cut. Alright, so next we're going to start stapling this in. Alright, so we're going to start with the sides, then we'll do the top and then the bottom. Alright, because what we're trying to do, we're aiming to take this slack out right here. Alright, that's what we're after. Okay. Alright, Mark here again with Cover Cats. This is the final stage, putting the back glass in. These little stoppers that I've told you about, you can get these at Lowe's, Home Depot, or wherever. And next is going to be the glass. We're going to put that on and let her cook in the sunlight. And that'll be the end of that. Okay, apart from the blatantly obvious, I want you to understand that you know, this is not really necessarily the best method. I've got bean bags. They do help, but they're not heavy enough. So I carefully placed a couple of bean bags onto the glass while I held this Cinderblock brick up in the air. It's not an easy task to do it by yourself. But anyway, I'm telling you all this to tell you that you're going to have to set this seal around the window right after you silicone it and place it. These right here are an enormous help. Use this right here and just squeeze them together, and it gives a really nice tight grip onto the window. It's not going to go anywhere. So it's a good investment. Don't try not to ever touch that if you can ever help it. But anyway, I want to thank you all. If you have made it this far, you have successfully installed the top. This will have to be calibrated. The weather strips and gaskets will have to be calibrated. I'm going to say in about maybe 3 weeks, I'm going to ask the customer to come back and we're going to calibrate everything. And I'm also going to tighten this down, this right here, this cable. And that's pretty much it. I want to thank you all for watching. Thanks for the ride. This is Mark with Cover Cats signing off, and good luck on yours. See ya.